Welcome to the COSB 360 Conversations videocast, the platform for county influencers. This is an organizational and talent development initiative to engage with all leaders and keep our workforce informed. This is also one way to share the efforts of departmental staff in what it takes from a leadership perspective to keep the wheels turning in our organization. This video podcast is being co-hosted by OTD Division Chief, Dr. June Mighty, and OTD Manager, Tim Smith.
Welcome to the COSB 360 video cast. Today, we are so excited and happy to have our CEO, Mona Miyasato, with us once again, and my awesome co-host, Timothy Smith, who is relatively new to our OTD team. He is the awesome training manager who is also going to help and drive training into the future. So Tim, no pressure, Tim, no pressure. But Mona, we are so happy to have you here once again, just listening, to be able to listen to what you have to say. And just so you know, and I think I've told you this before, that when we have these conversations with you and we upload them, I also try to use them in some of our training sessions as well, you know, to say to people, go out and listen to the CEO's sentiments, listen to what she's saying, you know, especially for those who don't interact with you on a regular basis. So one of the things that we want to focus on today really is looking back at the past and all the things that we have accomplished over the year. And so I want you to sort of share with us in terms of your thoughts on this past year. Just generally, we still have COVID with us. We are still in renew. We have a lot of things coming up with technology and change. You know, we've talked about some of the natural disasters that we've had, but thank goodness it doesn't seem like we've had as many this year as we've had in the past. So in some of those contexts, talk to us just a little bit about what your thoughts are, what insights you've sort of gleaned as we've come into this year and as we're going into 2022.
Well, thanks for having me, June. It's always great talking to you. And hi, Tim. And, you know, for those people who are watching, you know, the best part about these Zoom meetings is you get to see where people live, or you get to see their background and what they choose. So before we got on, I was saying, I want to be where June is. I want to just snuggle up in a little blanket with a cup of tea and read a book. And where Tim is, it's like, reminds me of like a sci-fi background where the bright light is there. The creatures
interrogation.
It's an interrogation. But anyway, and this is my office.
It is your office.
This is my office, and too bad the light's coming through because I have a great view of the mountains and the mountains being highlighted by the sun when it's not raining. But anyway, it's great to be here. And thinking about the year, I've had to give a couple of speeches, and looking back at the year, it's really interesting because what you said is true, June, that people had a lot of optimism in the summer. So think back where we were a year ago. Remember this time last year, people were fighting over who's going to get the vaccine.
Right.
Over 65, under 65, you know, whose name was there and where are you going to go and who's jumping in the line to get a vaccine, all of that. You flash forward to the summer, vaccines were widely available. And there's a sense of optimism, a great sense of optimism. And you can see it not only just in public opinion. You know, at the time, I think Gallup did a study that showed sort of positivity and optimism was an all-time high throughout the country. And then we had the Delta variant appear, and that went right. The optimism declined, and then it kind of leveled off. And now with the Omicron, it's, you know, people are even feeling a lower dip. And I keep reciting a study by a Harvard Business School psychologist, and she had talked about pandemic flux syndrome. And it's something to remember. And it meant that throughout the pandemic, our emotions have been going like this. They've been fluctuating, right? All-time high of optimism in the summer to be then tempered and then going down. And so we have to remember that as individuals, family members, spouses, parents, that there is this flux happening and to be aware of it. And that as individuals, we only have so much capacity for change. And so we always have highs and lows. We always have. but it's within a certain band. For us, because of the pandemic and just the length of it, people are at lows and probably lower than they usually would, and in a longer period of time. And because of that, it's causing a lot of stress and burnout. And really what I've told my staff is one way to address that is to rest. So you talked about we're at the end of the year. This is a good time for people to rest. And it's not necessarily that you have to quit. You know, we hear about the great resignation, about quitting, people wanting to change their life, which is, you know, understandable. But before you do that, I'd say just take a rest, because I think that's what we all need to do for our bodies and mind to get in sync as to what's really happening, and to give ourselves some time to adjust. Because you look back in the year, like you said, we had the Alisal fire, and we just had a few months ago, we had our rain event. A week ago, we were doing evacuations of the Alisal fire burn area because we met thresholds. You know, remember in the Alisal fire, it burned part of the Tejiquas Resource Recovery Center we had just opened in the summertime. So yeah, there's been a lot of excitement, lots of changes that occur. And I think when I look back on lessons that I've taken from the pandemic or where we are 18 months later, it's that people really are resilient. We have these fluctuations, but what I'm really amazed by is that everyone is pretty resilient. We're stretched too thin, people are getting burned out, but when they get the rest, people are bouncing back, and in small ways. And it's the small ways that you have to appreciate. It's the sense of humor. It's the camaraderie. It's when you do get together, how much more special that is. When you haven't seen someone in a long time, it's even these, you know, sharing these moments. So that's what I've taken away. And I think that that's been a reminder to me that in Renew 22, like you said, it was how to make our organization more resilient. And I think these experiences have really helped us as individuals, and also us as an organization, learn how do we actually get through the tough times and bounce back. And I hate to use the word bounce back, because we're not going to bounce back to where we were.
Right.
There's no going back to where we were. And the phrase that's in my mind is that the name of the game is changing with the change.
Oh, I like that.
And we have to change with the change, right? All of us, in whatever we do. And so how do we do that? And that's a question we all have to answer.
You know, I like that. Tim, we need to write that down. Change.
I'm writing it down.
Get that right. And you know what, you said something when we talk about changing with the change, and you had no way of, as CEO, of knowing 4 years ago that all this was coming. Yet in 2017, one of the things that you said, even when you were thinking about Renew 22 and you had the leadership and you were talking about this, you said that one of the things you said, and I don't know if it's an exact quote, but maybe a summary, is, you know, you want your organization to transform well. I think that was the way that you phrased it, to transform well. And as I look now, we're here, headed into 2022. I can say from my perspective, you know, like the county of Santa Barbara, and I believe that all that we've gone through. And let me say this, I was talking to someone in LA last week, and they were asking me about the mudslide. And they said, you know, I really thought when I saw it on TV, it was almost like this video imaging thing that was, so did people, the first question was, did people really die from that? What was that? I'm like, oh yes, it was, you know, and I started to explain, and they said they didn't really understand the devastation that had transpired as a result of that. And so sometimes in my mind, I think because we have so many fires, I think that everyone is aware of what's happening in Santa Barbara, but it's not so. But I feel when I was listening and talking to that individual, I did a sort of like a quick assessment and say, you know what, really, I think since then, I think we have just really done a good job of transforming to meet the needs. And that's my sense. How do you feel about that overall? And, you know, at your level, do you feel like we've sort of done some things right along the way here to get where we are? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks, June. Yeah, I think we've done a great job, and then it's the whole organization and the leadership team, the department heads, assistant department heads, the managers, and all the staff. We really have done a great job. But You said, you know, in 2017, we said we need to change. Well, the change is going to happen. It's trite to say it because we all know the only thing that's constant is change. Well, yeah, that's true. What does that mean? To me, I meant that looking around, there are things that we need to move on. It wasn't that we needed to change well, which is true, but we need to accelerate change in specific areas to be the foundation for us to be successful in the future. And one was technology, like you said. So the wheels started spinning. But the other part about that was changing frame of mind, right? And so, as you know, we have ACIT values and these transformational behaviors. And for some people, they're just going to be words. And you know, when I go to the new employee orientation, I always talk about it. I said, they're just not words. They're just not words. They're when you are sort of at sea and you don't know which way to turn, these are anchors. And if you can anchor yourself to these things, and we're telling you behaviors, way to act, these ways to act as part of our culture. If you do these things, it will lead you one step at a time in the right direction. And so I just knew that we had to do something because we need to accelerate change. And the change was in systems, right? We look at technology, our system, but most of it is changing ourselves, that people had permission to go ahead and take some reasonable risks. People had permission to go ahead and be more than themselves. People had permission to do that thing they know should be done, but weren't sure if they should be doing it or not. It was really that, as you know. And I think we've done it. The success to me was I had an employee who came up to me and he talked about, he works in a mostly male dominated field. And he said, you know, we've gotten more women recruited into our field. Either they're attracted to come or we've just done a better job recruiting because, you know, this whole Renew 22 is really working. Now, you know, June, because you were in at the beginning, it wasn't about hiring more women into these positions. The fact that he thought the change was attributed to Renew 22, to me was a success, right? It's thinking differently.
Right. That is awesome. Yeah. And we can't go through all the things that we have gone through as an organization together and not think differently. So I think you're right in systems, yes, and in thought. That is just so well said. Tim, what do you want to chime in? Chime in here.
Well, you know, one of the things that we're thinking about is Renew 22 5 years ago. We have these notable accomplishments and initiatives for the future. What do you see us going to in the next couple of years? You know, continuing that trajectory that we've started of transformation.
Well, a couple of things. We had a department head offsite, and I said, you know, what's a follow-up? What do we? And June did an awesome job facilitating. So, note to departments: if you want a great facilitator, she's right here.
Thank you.
HR, I'm your agent now. I got to cut them all.
5%.
All your engagements.
Love it.
But one of the things, do you remember, June? The first thing they said, no new initiatives, Mona.
Exactly.
They are tired. And so we said, okay, for 22, we're going to go deeper. We have these big future goals. We're going to continue with those. We're going to go deeper, focus more on getting outcomes, on performance measures, on those things. But they said, at least for the time being, nothing new. There's only so much they can take. Having said that, though, the next step in the future is looking at an outward facing plan so that we're assured that we're in alignment with the community and the board. So Renew 22 is really a process of an initiative to make sure our foundation was solid internally, right? Our systems, rebalance, redesign, revision, retain, all of that. And so it was to make sure that we had systems that were working effectively. And the next step really is to make sure then we, as an organization, are assured that we are in alignment with the community and what the board wants. And that's like an outwardly faced strategic thinking. And so that will have more time to do, but that would be the next step of Renew. Great.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Awesome. The other element of our discussion with you is we're thinking people have had to learn how to work in an entirely different way in the last 1.5 years or 2 years. And as we look towards the future of the way we work, we call that the workplace of the future. there are different ways. I've seen the county really make a lot of accommodations and adjustments and pivot. So what are your thoughts on that? Of, one of the things that you said, the workplace of the future, I heard you say this months ago, is to foster speed, agility, learning, and data. Those are some of the essential things. So what are your current thoughts on those types of issues?
Yeah, my thoughts haven't really changed. Those are exactly it. Because if you remember at the beginning of the pandemic, we had to move quickly, and we did things quickly, if you recall. And Tim, when did you get here?
July.
Yeah, I remember quickly.
HR remembers quickly because they were thrown in there and had to get a lot of stuff done quickly. But
sink or swim.
Sink or swim, it was. And we were all aligned because we all knew that this was an important initiative, right? That we had to get ourselves together, and help our employees, help the EOC, help public health. So we were all focused, and that focus allowed us to act more quickly. So it's sort of, do we have the muscle memory to know, hey, what was it like to act quickly?
Yeah.
What did you risk to act quickly? What did we do? How did we develop relationships or leverage relationships we have to act quickly?
Right.
The speed is important, and we've seen it even before COVID, right? But it just accentuated the fact that you do need to act quickly to keep up with the changing times. That's important. And we talked about learning, meaning you got to learn new things. Right. No one has it. One of our supervisors said, no one has the playbook on how this is going to end, right? Which is true.
Yeah.
We don't have the playbook.
Yeah.
And so on that hand, there's no playback, there's freedom to act, because there's no one telling you there is a way that you're supposed to act. That's one thing. The other thing, that means you have to be constantly learning.
Right.
Being open to learning, learning from each other, learning what other people are doing. That's really important. And then the other thing was about data, right? So much data, public health using data in ways that we hadn't before. Really, it was confined to the department, but now it's out on dashboard. So everyone can understand the data. Everyone can see how the data is being used to make decisions. That type of transparency and that type of accessibility of data is going to be commonplace. And if we fall behind, then we lose the trust of the public.
I had to use data just to decide if I was going to go on a vacation. Because I wanted to find out, is the place I'm going safe? So now it's right in our face with our decisions that we never had to use before. So yeah, we really need that data. Right. Speak to the culture of learning. You kind of set it up there, and June and I are geeks about culture of learning. That's where we live. But when you take a look at the whole county and all the employees we have here, what are some things that we can do to embrace that individually or as teams or departments?
Well, you guys are the experts. You tell me.
I love that.
Back to you, June.
That was good. That was good. Tim, tell her.
I love the idea of you will be healthier, you will be more resilient, and you'll be happier, and you'll get along with your coworkers better if you have a growth mindset. So I think we, help people see the what's in it for me, not just the money, but I'm going to be happier. I'm going to get along with these people, and there's some real value, and maybe I'll work more effectively. So I think if we can learn how to work in new ways, and we have that open mindset, and we don't get that rigidity of I'm a know-it-all, and get that fixed mindset, and then I think we become less happy and less effective. That's Tim's view.
Tim's view of the world. I like that.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that when people leave, because we've had several people in our department leave for other jobs, some within the county and some outside. And I thought about that, and in all their cases, it was good for them. I said for their own growth. They've reached a certain point, but it's also because in a new position, you can have that growth mindset. I mean, you do, because you're in a new position, you're learning, but you can reinvent yourself as well.
Right.
You can reinvent yourself. You're an open book to some degree. And so I thought about that part of this issue about people leaving. You see all the, people leaving their jobs and going to other jobs. I think there's some part of that. It gives an excuse, or it gives permission to be different and have that growth mindset in a very transparent way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it helps in terms of sometimes with that authenticity as well, because sometimes you're doing things and the crisis helps you to realize, wait a second, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing at this point? And I've had people who are who have that epiphany, who are coming to that place in that space. And so I think for that reason, some people do make those changes. But I also think you said something, and it relates to also culture, in terms of the type of culture. Yes, it's a learning culture, but it's also a resilient culture. I think just everything that happens here, even with the natural disasters, forces us to think with a more resilient mindset. Things are not going to be as they were. We don't know what they will be, but we know they're not going to be the same. And as we look towards the future, you're right, the speed that's necessary, the values that we need to be able to anchor ourselves as we navigate ambiguity and uncertainty. Because I found myself, when I wrote the article for the HR magazine, I found myself trying to look for some sense of certainty in certain areas that it's just not there right now. And so what's the certainty? Really understanding the values, what anchors me, what guides me, what keeps me going. Some of those things are what we need. So I think helping the workforce as well to just be able to, what was it that she just said? What did you write it down? Because
I did. The name of the game is the change is the change.
Change,
change with the change.
Change with the change.
With the change.
Tim,
come on.
Come on.
I can't read my own writing.
That's because
It is change with the change. There we go.
You know what? I think we got to get excited about that instead of just like, okay, so trying to stay fixed. It's like, nah, let's change with the change. What's next? And be able to understand where we are at our capacity, be able to step back and rest when we need to and reflect, and then go with it again. And that's how we maintain that aspect of renewal, because 2022 is around the corner, but the organization itself has to constantly renew itself. You have to constantly, there's this, I remember, and Tim, you could correct me if you know this story, but I was listening to, in terms of eagles, they renew themselves by literally beating at their beaks. There's a time they take out to sharpen their beaks, and it's a painful process, but they actually do that. And so I think we have to reflect, take that time, and then consistently take time to renew, because that's how we maintain, that's how we continue to thrive. And that's what I think the organization is about. And I think that's what the future of the organization is about.
Absolutely. And I thank you for bringing that all together. See, June's so great. She can put all these pieces together and put them back into the renew framing. But it is true. And part of that renewal, and the changing with the change, is why it's exciting. Is, I mean, at an individual level,
right?
The change. Someone told me a metaphor that I always think about. Said, if you've been swimming in the ocean, or you get knocked over by a wave, and it's tumultuous, and you're kind of trying to come up from air, and there's things floating around you, and you're knocked around by the waves and the currents. It's unsettling. It doesn't feel good. But when you're on top of the wave, or if you're body surfing or boogie boarding or surfing or whatever, if you're still in the wave, but you're maneuvering differently, right? And you're with it. You're in it. But you're in it in a different way. You're not getting knocked around by it.
Right.
And so all these things that we're facing, it's how do we as an organization not get knocked around by the currents, but be in the current and with it, and know that we need to, what happens when you're body surfing, boogie boarding, or surfing or whatever, is you're changing your balance. Changing your balance as you go, your feet position, your arms, right? You're changing your balance. So you are changing with the change that is happening in order to stay afloat, rather than just being the same mass and getting knocked around by the water.
No, you landed that really well.
I'm a surfer, so I love that illustration.
That illustration is good.
Right.
Go with the flow, don't fight it.
Yeah, we're gonna take
because the ocean will win. That's a little saying we have as surfers.
Yeah, the ocean will. I love that.
Ocean wins.
The ocean will win. Right.
And I knew you'd be able to relate to that, Tim. So that really is well stated. It's rebalancing. Rebalancing how we think, rebalancing how we look at situations. And Mona, to be honest, I think about it myself, because I was challenging myself. Like, I was facing a situation, and I really asked myself, how are you really looking at this? Are you looking at this the right way? Are you really the glass half full or you glass half empty? And I'm asking myself these questions. I'm like, it's how you're looking at it. Get out of there. And I've just had to just do that. I'm like, yeah. I mean, straighten up, fly right.
I love that. I'm gonna think of that, June, when you're thinking about get out of there.
Yeah, really, because sometimes you can just your mind, and I'm a thinker at that. So I'm like, no, it's like my voice, no, back out, get out of there, get out of there.
Get out of there. It's like beep, beep, beep,
back pedal, go the other way, kid. So you're so right about all of this, and really, I always say everyone is here for a specific time, a season, and purpose for where we are. And so you are here as the CEO for this specific time and for this purpose to help guide us along with the executive team, the department heads, and everyone in the organization to navigate this turn, because it's almost like a turn. I never I like motorcycles, but I've never ridden one. But I love to see it when they lay you're riding and it's one of those really nice sports bikes. You sort of taking a turn, it's just sharp turn, and you're sort of leaning into it, but not fully knowing what's coming ahead. And so I think that's what we're doing. We've just sort of leaning into it, and just that when we come out, I believe that we'll be on the right footing and the right trajectory. So Mona, thank you so much for joining us today, for the laughter, for the insight, the wisdom, and for the rebalancing and being able to change with the change. I got it, Tim. I got it.
Thanks for doing these podcasts, because they are time for people to reflect, to listen. You incite really great conversations and ideas. And, we're idea people at heart, right?
Yeah.
But ideas about connection. And so, no, thank you for continuing to do these. And it took the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
We've done, I think, as an organization, we've seen so much creativity, because it causes you to think and do things in different ways that we never thought possible and that you have to. So, it's been challenging, but I think it's also brought the best out of people as well. I really think so.
And I'm really proud of all the employees throughout the county. I mean, like I said, it's heartwarming when you see people and they're still smiling and they're still doing their best, and they're tired, but they're still trying, and they're still, working well with the public and their clients and the customers. And that's really inspiring to me.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of courageous people here.
We do.
I don't think the public realizes it takes a special person to be in public service these days.
Yes.
And as you know, and I say to the new employee, everyone here is a hero. It's a hero of the story of the county of Santa Barbara.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Something to be proud of.
Well,
all right.
Glad to be here. Thank you so much. Good
Thanks
stuff.
for
I
joining
appreciate
us.
it.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Take care,
Alrighty.
Mona. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, we've had a great conversation with Mona Miyasato, our CEO, just talking about changing with the change. I love her example in terms of rebalancing, and when you think about, because we love the ocean, we're here, and Santa Barbara has these beautiful views, but I love her analogies and her illustration. And I think, Tim, in the future, I definitely want others to see this and for us to continue to share this with those who participate in our programs, because it's so insightful and so inspirational. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I have two takeaways from just listening to her. Wouldn't it be great to have a culture, we're putting these questions together and saying, what do we want to do in the next year and in the future? A culture where people feel free to ask each other, we've been through a lot, but what are you doing to rest? That was one of her points. Encourage each other, give each other permission to rest. Yeah. And then the other part of it would be, what are you doing to grow and learn? I think if we had a culture where people gave each other permission to rest and grow and learn, then that's really caring for each other, especially coming through this very challenging time. So those are my two takeaways that I got from Mona.
Well, you know what? I think those are great takeaways. And I think maybe one, you should send that to us, your colleagues, in the text message so we can reflect on that.
Yeah.
You know,
Don't forget, we said
over the
this.
holidays. And then as we move through, not knowing what next year brings, maybe those are things that periodically we those questions that we pose and somehow facilitate and make people, encourage people to become comfortable with it. You know, because I find when I rest, and you know about you, but that I re-energize the introversion aspect. That's how I re-energize, and then I can be more creative and be a better person. You know, when I don't, I'm not. It's almost like operating on empty, almost, and that's not always the best.
I don't want to grow if I'm not rested. You know, be like, I'm just grumpy right now. I'm like a little kid.
Yeah.
I need a nap. And after I've had a nap, then I'm interested in exploring or playing or growing or talking to people. So I actually think we all might be in a need to have a big nap.
A nap. And you know what? You know how sometimes it's so cool with little kids when they're really exhausted, how they'll fall asleep wherever they are. They're just so tired. You know, fall asleep on a staircase or on the couch or kneeling, wherever they are. They're so exhausted. Okay, they're tuckered out, no move. So that's kind of, I think, where we are. And so maybe over the holiday closure, we will all take some time to do what we can to rest and think about what we've learned and come prepared to change with the change next year.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That was awesome. And we will do this again next time. See you then.
See you next time.
All righty.